This video is going to be a film study look at Joey Bosa, the veteran defensive end who was released by the Chargers last week, and in this first flurry or hit of NFL free agency, if you will, was not included in signings. Looks like a good fit were it not for injuries for a team like the Lions. Needs pass rush help. Let go of Zadarius Smith in a surprising fashion over the weekend, but so many other competitors are going to be out there for his services. What do you get with Joey Bosa? First of all, guy with 72 career sacks, like you saw the stats flow through. I'm going to focus this on the film here, to be honest with you, so I'm going to get to the film really quick. A couple of general observations. His 14 games played in 2024 first of all, is more than he had played since 2021. The prior two seasons, 2022, 2023, 5 games and then 9 games. So certainly a guy who's dealt with injuries. I think he was dealing with at least 2 last year, one that was announced. I wonder about his right arm and some of the stuff that you see during this film, or perhaps shoulder. Some of the stuff that you see during this film and the plays that I'll show, I'll kind of use to support that or maybe explain it a little bit. His moves, his hand swipes, his rips, not as precise as other players. Granted, he's 6'5", 280, and with a great motor, so he can overwhelm players at times on the offensive line, fullbacks, tight ends, running backs, if you will. Let's get to the film, and I will have a significant amount of film to go through. I think that he's a guy who, at least from the film I saw from 2024, he didn't win a ton of initial engagements. Mostly, if he was impacting the quarterback, it was second engagement, or in this case, what I would call third engagement. So first engagement, just from a timing standpoint. Second one, trying to push or bull rush off. And then third one, he's able to escape. The left tackle in this instance clearly has done his job at this point. Gardner Minshew trying to get out of there on a 3rd and 3. And Bosa's got great range. He's got great range against run plays and pass plays. He's able to get to the football. And in this case, it's, get to the quarterback. The one thing I want to point out, he's an extremely experienced edge rusher. Great timing on stunts or twists. Very smart in that regard. He knows when to move or how to fake or how to give a slight fake to the offensive lineman that holds them for a little bit longer and can free him up on a twist or a stunt. I think his size and his strength work in his favor as well. So let me explain what I mean here. Here's a stunt on a 3rd and 22 from the same game, week 1 against the Raiders. Get upfield and then go underneath. The center tries to fold back. If you get the running back moving away from this stunt, you're really talking about a 2-on-2, meaning the defensive end and the offensive tackle, and then the defensive tackle and the right guard. Now the center is going to try to fold back to help out here because he recognizes the manner of this stunt. You can see Bosa, he's just a load once he gets on his track. I think his timing on these stunts is very good. He's not going to be like, a rookie edge rusher or defensive end that you bring in who needs to be coached on when to do those things. I don't pretend to be an expert about it, but what I will say is when you watch the film of Bosa and other experienced edge rushers who've been around as long as he has, Khalil Mack and others, those guys know when to stunt underneath. They know how to execute the picks to a different degree than rookies will. Also, he plays through contact extremely well. When you see this one through the end zone lens one more time, contact doesn't bother him as much. Even in what I would consider an injury riddled season, he missed time, I think, after week 2, perhaps week 3. And then when he returned later in the year, I would not say he looked as explosive as the guy that you see here, and that there was in film even of 2023 when he did play 9 football games. He still plays through contact well, even though the explosiveness, the get off, maybe isn't the same as it was earlier in his career. He's 29 years old. People call that old in this day and age. But in any case, another element of his game that I'm observing, and I mentioned it in the lead-in, his hand swipes, his rips, his chops are not as precise as others. I would almost, in the film that I saw from 2023, at times describe him as a mugger. Forgive the poor description there, and I certainly don't mean it to be disrespectful. He's a fantastic football player. I think he could catch on. I think he could have an impact if he can stay healthy. Very athletic for a guy 275, 280. May not need to be as sharp, as precise with his hand swipes, with his moves as others. The rush against the right tackle for Carolina turns into a sack, very similar to the one that I showed you against Gardner Minshew and Colton Miller, the left tackle for the Raiders. Doesn't necessarily win on the first engagement, tries to pull away for the second, and then since Bryce Young has to escape what I would call the third engagement there, and I recognize that other people may not use that descriptor for pass rush guys, but the reason why I insist upon doing so is certain players win on their first engagement. He can do so, but more often than not, at least from what I saw from 2024, he's winning on the second or the third engagement because of his size, his strength, his length, and then maybe other factors like you saw on that play there, another teammate pressuring the quarterback, forcing him to adjust, and then the adaptability, getting the quarterback off his spot, and then the adaptability of Bosa to be able to redirect. I think that is certainly a strength. Moving forward in the season here, we're going to get to some film against the Bengals and some impact plays, to be honest with you, but still not as good of a get-off just in terms of gaining ground, in my opinion. But one thing he does really well is he deals with running back and tight end chips. It doesn't bother him, getting back to the contact balance or the ability to play through contact. I think he's really good at that. I don't know how that's defined. There's certainly no drill that quantifies it. It's just one of the things you can kind of see when you watch film of a guy, particularly from the end zone angle, and you can see the extension here. I know that you're talking about a mismatch athletically with this particular left tackle. I think these are the types of rushes that are on film more often from him. It's essentially a 3+1 delayed rush with the other OLB kind of lagging behind. Bud Dupree, another veteran that the Chargers had, who I really liked his film when he was with the Steelers, younger in his career, earlier in his career, but now different player here. The adaptability during the play finds the quarterback specifically. If you can tag him with a defensive tackle, maybe a defensive end, outside linebacker on the other side who causes havoc and is going to force the pocket to get reconfigured 2 to 2.2 seconds after the ball is snapped, then Bosa is a guy who can redirect, adapt during the play, and get to the quarterback and get some of those, less clean sacks, if you will. I think he's a good option for teams looking to cut costs, cut price, and get a guy in who can get to the quarterback. But I don't think he's a guy at this point who's going to play 50, 55 snaps a game. And with the salary that he may be pursuing, that's what you would want if you're going to pay a guy premium cost. It certainly seems like that's not what's going to be in the cards for him, given that he wasn't a part of the first foray of free agent signings. Very easily could have been called a fumble there by Joe Burrow, and I think being called for intentional grounding. He's a good football player still, someone that I would want to be on a team that I was rooting for because of his versatility with stunts and twists, his ability to redirect, like I said. He doesn't get bothered by chips from running backs, tight ends. Doesn't really seem to get bothered by offensive linemen as well. He may lose, don't get me wrong, but he plays through the contact. I really do actually like his game. Were it not for the injury history, I would say he's a good fit for the Detroit Lions. Someone who's looking for a guy to play off the right side, opposite of Aiden Hutchinson, who can be there in pass rush situations, a known entity, if you will. The problem is, reliability for him. Another example of playing through contact, you get a pretty violent chip with the inside shoulder by 34, and then he just slides underneath. Also, hey, it's a really great job by, I believe it's Haney, the inside linebacker. I think it's Haney, I could be wrong. Here, kind of fronting up Mahomes and then getting in the window on the pump fake. Bosa closes it down for a sack against the Chiefs. You don't have a whole lot of clean wins from 2024, and that's why, I'm not showing them to you. But he's 6'5", 275, 280. And you need to look no further than, the other side of the field, Khalil Mack, for older evidence that older outside linebackers, pass rushers, can have an impact. And for Ravens fans, and I'm a Ravens content creator, we've had a slew of them in recent years. Justin Houston, JPP, Kyle Van Noy, Jadeveon Clowney, all have come to Baltimore and made an impact. In their 30s, or even in the case of Houston, 33, and now Van Noy, I think he'll turn 34 this season. Same play from the end zone angle. You'll see the chip on Bosa gets into his chest. Is there some times where, I think he's playing a little bit high? Maybe, but this is a chip situation. He doesn't know what the running back is going to do post-snap. I do like his pass rush close down, his ability to turn plays into sacks that didn't look like they would be sacks early on in the snap, on that first engagement, like I called it. Let's talk about the wider alignment a little bit. It allows him to play with a little bit more force. I didn't think his bend I didn't think as he bent to the quarterback, he was able to maintain speed like some of the other guys in the league. And I'm going to use a particular play as an example, not as to criticize him, but to reference it. It's going to be Khalil Mack from the other side. So it's two different pass rushes here, right? You have more of um, a long arm bull rush from Bosa, just trying to knock Jawan Taylor off from that wider alignment. Khalil Mack is running around the left tackle. So you have more of a topside speed rush. It's a mismatch there. He's able to get to the quarterback, impact the throw. But Bosa is a guy that, well, if you were to design a pass rush plan for these two players, this is what you would want to see from a strength standpoint, is Bosa on more of a bull rush and Mack trying to get around the edge, bend to the quarterback. He's really good at it, even though I think he only had 6.5 sacks last year. My point is, it's possible that the pass rush plan that we see from Bosa, even in 2024, is intentional from a coaching standpoint, recognizing what he's really good at. I think he's great at redirecting when the quarterback is in the pocket. I'm not sure about lateral agility compared to, compare him to the younger 21, 22, 23-year-old guys that are going to be in the draft. They're going to be able, I think, better able to redirect on play action concepts where you've got to move laterally. I want to show you one of them here. I get to cherry pick plays, don't get me wrong, but when I watch 50, 60 plays of a guy on pass rush situations and then watch another 30 or 40 of run situations and try to cut it down for you in a manageable spot, 18, 20 plays usually, sometimes that's a little too much. You get a couple of like this, I think I have to show you one. So play action boot, running back going away, to our right. Here's Bosa. He's got to navigate a whole lot of opportunities or possibilities, right? Number one, I got to run down the running back from behind if it is in fact a run play. Number two, I've got to redirect to the quarterback, if the quarterback keeps it, which is actually what happens here, and he's unable to hold contain. That's what you're asked to do on those. That's why those concepts are timeless, right? You've got that horizontal conflict that's being created by the running back in one direction and the quarterback in the other. Comes from, wing T, buck sweep / waggle concept being tagged together out of the same formation, the same backfield action. It's timeless, right? Bosa in two other situations I had on film was unable to contain the quarterback in situations where I think he should. And look, the reality is, depending on the coverage, sometimes the coverages are not a good matchup for a particular play action threat. That's why certain coverages aren't called on 1st and 10 against 21 personnel, against 12 personnel. In this case, I think it's pretty clear that Joey Bosa should have been able to, he was tasked with, containing the quarterback. He should have been able to at least interrupt Bo Nix from a clean run out to the edge. That's one of the plays that I would say he is less able to play in a lateral fashion once the quarterback or a running back has, really got away from the pocket. So let's move on to some run plays. He covers a lot of ground here as well, especially stuff away from him. I don't really have a ton of run plays. I had 5 where he was directly at the point of attack. He didn't necessarily look great on some of them, but he didn't look horrible either. There was nothing worth me showing you from the standpoint of trying to break it down and make a larger point, which is what this whole video is about. On run plays away from him, though, when he sees the action, he doesn't have to worry about boot, like the play that I just showed you against Bo Nix and the Broncos. He's great. He can cover a lot of ground. You got a wide receiver trying to cut him off. I think it's Myers. Unable to do so. Bosa down the line, going to get the running back. You do have that same type of conflict here with the running back in that direction and the quarterback possibly booting off of it. The difference is another player is responsible for the boot. So that frees Bosa up to go on ahead and go get the running back. Hopefully the blue lines show up there well for you guys. The point is, he covers a lot of ground on run plays away from him when he's not responsible for the boot. So depending on the formation, depending on the coverage and the situation, he may be asked to play the quarterback, give him, less of a propensity to track things down from behind. Same play, end zone angle. Myers is the guy responsible for blocking him. Because 32 is outside, Bosa can just take off. 32 closes down as well. They're both able to impact the play, get in on the tackle. Bunch of run plays like that is what I got on film for you guys. It's really the only larger statement that I can make. I would say he adapts well during the play against the pass. When it's a run concept, I really like him being the backside guy. So, and here's what I mean. He can recognize the scheme quickly and then dip underneath of it. Now, I'm also going to make a point about, his arm flexibility. He's trying to rip here. It just doesn't look as pronounced nor as violent. It still works. He gets in on the tackle. Don't get me wrong. I'm talking about what occurs right here as he recognizes the blocking scheme, super awareness. He knows that Derwin James is outside of him, responsible for quarterback, so he doesn't need to be on this top side of this block. He's going to try to rip underneath of it, which is what occurs. The rip just isn't as pronounced. It isn't as violent. It isn't as powerful as as I would expect for someone with his arm length, with his strength, and his explosiveness. Not sure the nature of injury. We're never sure the nature of injuries that occur, during the season for NFL players. Sometimes things don't get reported. We can only go off what's on the injury report. But do wonder about his shoulder flexibility with the right arm. I have no idea what the previous injuries are. I'm not going to pretend to tell you those things. If there's Chargers fans or people that are more familiar with his game, they could certainly do so. But I feel like this rip could be a lot more violent. He is, being framed up or limited with the outside arm, the right arm of the offensive lineman, the tackle. Here, he's still able to get to the play against Chase Brown. My point is, I think he's better on run concepts away from him than at the point of attack. Multiple examples of this where I would say they're almost kind of like freebies for a guy like him with his size, his range, and his experience level. Pretty much be the last two plays that I show you here. His ability to close down. You do have the threat of Lamar on the boot, right? With Henry in that direction, and then Lamar on the keep going out in the opposite direction. So Bosa's got to worry about that. Very similar to the play that I showed you where Bo Nix was able to get out of the pocket. What do you think a guy like this would be worth at this point in time? 29 years old. There's a lot of good talent for young edge defenders in this draft. If you ask me, I think it's a better draft than a lot of people are offering for edge defenders, outside linebackers. Guys, there's good players that were drafted last year late. Jalix Hunt made an impact in the Super Bowl for the Philadelphia Eagles. To my knowledge, he was not even one of the first 10 or 12 or 14 edge defenders drafted in last year's draft. I could be way off on that number, but I certainly don't think he was one of the top 10 guys drafted in order chronologically. Does Joey Bosa exceed some of those guys in this draft? I'm not sure. It'll be the salary standpoint consideration. The last play, again, away from him, dealing with a tight end. In this case, it's Isaiah Likely. This is late in the game against the Ravens, first of all. Second of all, you do have a defensive tackle who's disrupting things on the front side, causing the running back, in this case Justice Hill, to snap back or cut back. And then Bosa closes down from behind, gets a tackle. Statistically, has not had as much impact in the last 3 years prior to that. Most of his 72 sacks were accumulated prior to 2022. As the stats flow through here, that'll be quite obvious to anyone who wants to make that point. Someone will sign him. If he's able to stay healthy, is there someone who could benefit from his presence? A defense that could utilize him in targeted situations? Yes, I actually do think that. I don't know who that team would be. I don't know what the price point is, but he still looks like a guy when you get film of him playing 40 to 50 snaps a game. And he had a sack in the playoffs. You actually see it in the background of this picture here against C.J. Stroud. Certainly most of his impact is in the first 6 years of his contract. The last 3 years, or of his career, I should say. The last 3 years, 22, 23, 24. Sack numbers, games played, just haven't been there. Would I like to see a team like the Lions commit a ton of money to this guy? As someone who roots for the Lions actively, no, I would not. I would want someone who's got a little more durability, a little bit more reliable in terms of being out there on the field, but still a good football player that I'm interested to see where he ends up and then how a team tries to utilize him. If you enjoy these videos, please let me know in the comment section. Number one, they are projection-based. I'm not able to watch an entire season to try to produce something like this. I think I had about 100 plays, maybe a little less, originally saved up. Usually try to cut it in half, if not more so, and then make a final decision about which 18 or 20 plays to present and try to annotate. So there's a lot of potential for error or missteps in that process, and certainly I make make enough and possibly more than others at times. But if you think other NFL fans whose teams might be looking for edge rush, pass rush help might enjoy this video, then please consider grabbing a link to this video, sharing it out on social media to help this content get more reach.